Good morning, class. Welcome to our third lecture of international business. Having a recap of what we did yesterday, we were looking at the market entry strategies that businesses can use when they want to go international. We looked at the modes that they can use. We also looked at uh, whether it is a good idea for a business to be the first one to enter a market, or whether it is not a good idea for a business to enter the market first. We also looked at what are the consequences of a business entering a market after other businesses dealing or trading in that product have already entered that market. Those are the entry strategies that we looked at yesterday, because for you to go international, you need to plan. For you to go international, you need to make sure that you have full information about the market that you want to venture into. For you to start anything, for example, for you to start exporting a product, you need to know full information about the target market that you have for those exports that you want to start dealing with. For you to do an investment using foreign direct investment, you need to ask yourself questions. Do I need the greenfield investment? Do I have to start from scratch? Or maybe I just have to use acquisition, in which you do not have to start from scratch, but you are going to acquire an already established firm. And we looked at some advantages of both starting as a greenfield investment and also as an acquisition, which was our conclusion. And I requested that on your free time, you should be able to find some advantages and disadvantages, or distinguishing which one is better between a greenfield investment, which is an investment starting from scratch, or an acquisition, which is an investment that requires you to start to establish yourself in an already existing firm. Those are the things that we looked at yesterday concerning international business. We saw that if a firm is the first to enter a given market, we see that it is going to experience advantage because it has no competition in that market. And then we also see that it has some disadvantages. Some disadvantages are the firm does not fully know how to go about with the raw materials in that given area, and that is going to make that firm experience a lot of costs compared to a situation where it can enter that market late. Because if at all you start trading a product today that is already on the market, you have less costs in terms of raw material advertisement, and you have a lot of you won't have difficulties in trying to establish yourself, because that product has already been advertised in that market. The only consequence, or the only thing that you're going to experience as a challenge when you're the first person to enter that market, the only experience that you're going to face, if at all you enter that market late, where a product has already been advertised, is that your profit margins are going to be lowered, because that marketplace, it is highly competitive, and in a competitive market, you have little or no control over price fixation. This is because price is already determined, and every person who's trading in a competitive market cannot decide on what to do with the price. If you decide to reduce your price today in a competitive environment, quite okay, you're going to get all the customers or all the consumers who would need that product. But you as a firm, you won't be doing yourself any good, because you'll be making losses, or you won't be making any profits, because the raw materials that you are using to produce that product had the value, they had the price, you paid for that. And if you give a price today in the market that is not giving you any profit, then you're not covering up for those costs that you experienced during production. And if you enter a market when you're a first person, or maybe you're the first person to start trading in a given product, say you be a monopoly in that product. This is because you have the advantage to set your own price. You have the whole market will be at your disposal. You'll be able to supply, and the only things that you need to deal with is to get full information of the products, the qualities, and the things that people can desire to see in the products that you're producing. Uh, you as a customer, you wouldn't want somebody supplying you something of low quality. That simply means that if you today you decide to start up a business, you wouldn't want to be producing something that's of low quality. Because if you start producing something of low quality, you won't be doing yourself any good. That is because people are going to lose confidence in the products that you're going to be selling. Now, imagine you're on an international scene. You've established yourself elsewhere. Let's say you've established yourself in Zimbabwe. Trust me, you're going to need you need a lot of resources for you to set up your business in another country. Imagine a situation where a lot of money has been used to get established in another country, and then you end up making products which are not appealing to people. You end up making products which do not satisfy the consumer qualities. You end up making products that do not meet the desires or the preferences of your target market. What are you going to do? What will happen at the end of the day? All your consumers, or the majority of your consumers, are going to lose interest in the products that you are dealing with. And if they are substitutes, if at all they are substitutes to that product that you are producing, the consumers are going to make sure that they will end up replacing that product that you are supplying to them with another product. So today in our lecture, which is our third lecture, we will have two more lectures in international business for us to conclude and also have a recap on everything that we have been doing. And up to this far, we have seen that this course is less of the quantitative part, but it is highly qualitative. It has a lot of definitions. You need planning, you need to look at advantages. So there's nothing difficult about this course. There's nothing difficult, and the only challenge which will be there, it is you to make sure that you create enough time to go through each and everything that will be given to you at your disposal. And trust me, these slides are easy to read, easy to understand. Make sure that every opportunity that you get to go through these slides, every opportunity that you have a chance, you're free, make sure you go through these slides, because in one day you cannot know everything. But if you are able to go through the slides time after time, you'll be able to know everything. I do not know everything, but through reading, I get to know those things which I didn't know. In the same way, you should be able to do the same. You get to you read more until you reach that point when you know and you can perfect your work. Because trust me, when you be writing the exams, it will be easy and everything will be straightforward, because you'll be able to recall each and everything without having any stress. So today we'll look at the global manufacturing and materials management. In this topic, now after you've established yourself, what kind of products are you going to be dealing with, and what are the things that you're going to be looking at on that foreign or the international platform. So global manufacturing and materials management, which is our first slide, we go to our second slide. So the learning outcome. After completion of this chapter, the students will be able to understand materials management, country factors, strategic role of foreign factories. Introduction. International firms must answer 5 interrelated questions. These are the questions which international firms should answer. Where should production activities be located? What should be the long-term strategic role of foreign production sites? Should the firm own foreign production activities, or is it better to outsource those activities to independent vendors? 4, how should a globally dispersed supply chain be managed? And what is the role of internet-based information technology in the management of global logistics? 5, should the firm manage global logistics itself, or should it outsource the management to enterprise that specialize in this activity, or should it look at external sources that specialize in this activity? Moving on to slide 4. Strategy, production, and logistics. Firms need to identify how production and logistics can be conducted internationally. Why should they do this? This is to lower the cost of value creation, add value by better serving customers. So, in every business, before you start doing something, you need information. You need to understand, what do customers want? You also have to understand, how do I produce this thing? So those are what, how, and for whom questions you need to ask yourself. What do I have to produce? How am I going to produce it? And for whom am I going to produce this thing? Those are the questions which you need to ask yourself when you're into production or product creation, and also when you're serving customers who are not in the same circumference or your domestic region. When you have all this information at your disposal, you'll be able to lower the cost value. You're not going to experience a lot of costs in terms of raw materials processing into final products. This is because you have all the information that is required, and it will be easy for you to save customers because you have the full information that you need to know about them. You need you know the qualities that they want to see in your product. You know the preferences that they want, and you know the quantities that is needed for the demand. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to supply the required quantity and the required qualities of products at the end of the day. Production refers to activities involved in creating a product. So each and every activity that is involved in processing of raw materials into finished products is production. That is what it means by production. Each and every process that is used or that is undertaken into creation of final products from raw materials is production. Logistics refers to the procurement and physical transmission of materials through the supply chain from suppliers to customers. So if you want to purchase something today, you get your mobile phone, for example, on eBay, you request for a purchase, you do all the transactions, and then the process which is going to happen afterwards, the supplying of a product from the supplier until you, the final stage, who's the consumer. That whole process is collectively known as logistics. Hence the definition of logistics, which refers to the procurement and physical transmission of materials through the supply chain from suppliers to customers. Moving on to slide 5. To lower costs, what can firms do? So they can disperse production to those locations where activities can be performed most efficiently. So what is efficiency? Efficiency is simply a way in doing something that you're going to use the least possible cost. So if you're producing bread, it does not need to take you a lot of resources or a higher cost for you to produce the maximum output. You need to make sure that your production is going to lower or minimize the cost of raw materials transformation into final products. That is what is meant by efficiency in producing something. They can also manage the global supply chain efficiently to better match supply and demand. How are you going to manage the global supply chain efficiently? So you are going to look at factors like communication, transparency, and time management. These are some of the things that you're going to look at if you want to make sure that your costs are lowered and efficiency is met. Trust me, if the departments in your firm and if the departments in your firm do not have a good communication system, efficiency is not going to be met because it's going to take longer for you to know each and everything that is happening at every stage. Hence, efficiency is something that is an end result of a collective stages. You need to make sure that your time management of things is followed. There's communication and also transparency for you to make sure that the supply chain is efficient on a global market, because if there's no good communication, your domestic firm and another firm that you established in another country, say Zimbabwe, you'll find that if there's no good communication, the supply of goods from your domestic firm to a foreign setup is not going to be met because you do not have the full information on the demand changes. Because if the demand increases of a given product, you also need to increase the supply. Hence, communication has to be met, time management has to be seen, and transparency has to be seen. To improve quality, firms can eliminate defective products from the supply chain and the manufacturing process. Improved quality will also reduce costs. I remember there was a time when I used to work as a casual worker for Trade Kings. You know, when you're producing something, it has a production chain. And quality control simply means that you need to ensure every stage during a production does not have defective products. It has to ensure that products are not damaged at any stage. And if you notice any defective product at a given stage, you make sure that you remove it. That product does not have to reach a consumer in a defective or in a damaged state. If it reaches a consumer in a damaged state, those are situations where consumer confidence in your product will be lost. Hence, quality control in the supply chain should be managed. And that is going to ensure that the products you produce at the end of the day have high quality, no damages, and will satisfy the needs of a consumer. And if this is met, you will see that you're going to reduce costs. This is because You won't go back to the same things that you were looking at. Consumers or customers are not going to be coming to you on your doorstep every day, refunding things or maybe bringing back things to you, complaining to you, saying that these things are damaged, these things are what. The consumers won't have that opportunity because you have made sure that each and every stage of your production chain has quality control. To increase product quality, most firms today use the Six Sigma program, which aims to reduce defects, boost productivity, eliminate waste, and cut costs throughout a company. So this Six Sigma program just ensures that you have quality control of each and every stage. Six Sigma is a direct descendant of total quality management. So all these are techniques of making sure that there's quality control. And we see that the end result of all these processes is to ensure that there's improvement in product quality. So, for example, in the European Union, firms must meet the standards set forth by ISO 9000 before the firm is allowed to access the European market. So there's also Bureau of Standards in Zambia, which makes sure that the business that you're dealing with meets the given target regulations at the end of the day. Most countries ensure that they have a body that ensures that the product that a given firm is manufacturing for a target population meet their required standards, and they ensure that no counterfeit products are circulated on the market because they can cause adverse or they can cause negative impacts to the people. International companies have two other important production and logistics objectives. Number one, production and logistic functions must be able to accommodate demands for local responsiveness. So when you look at this point, it simply means that any changes in demand, if demand increases, if demand reduces, those are the responsiveness, which are referred to elasticities at the end of the day. If these changes are there, how is the production and logistics going to accommodate for this? You see, those are the decisions that you need to look at. You need to make sure that when demand goes up, you are able to meet the demand. When it reduces, you also have an alternative reaction to that scenario. Production and logistics must be able to respond quickly to shifts in the customer demand. You see, they should be able to respond quickly. So when you're dealing as a business, a firm owner, or a board of managers, you need to make sure that the decisions are going to be swift. They should be sharp, that the moment you see a shift in the customer demand, you should also be able to have a shift in your supply chain or in your supply function or in your quantity supplied. You need to make sure that the quantity supplied is able to meet the changes in demand that people have shown to you. Three factors are important when making location decisions. So you've got country factors, technological factors, and product factors. So these are where to produce. So like when you're now deciding on where to produce, you're faced with some decisions to make, and you are faced with some challenges in as much as you're going to be deciding on where to produce. So you look at the three factors, which are country factors, technological factors, and the product factors. Like we looked at in the earlier chapters to say, the country also has an impact on your business when you look at its political decisions. And your product factors, you also have an impact, because it's not like every location in a given it's not like every location on this earth consume the same product. And you need to make sure that if that's the case, you should be able to produce or provide the product that is required in each and every given location. Because what people prefer in the eastern part of Zambia is not the same thing that people prefer in the western part of Zambia. Hence, product factors are also something that you need to consider. Technological factors as well. It's not every technology that you possess as a firm. Hence, that becomes a challenge, because some products need other technologies that you might not have as a firm, and you need to employ them from other sources. Hence, that is a factor on its own which is going to affect your business and your desired location. Because you wouldn't want to be operating from a geographical barrier. That simply means that people who are helping you with part of the technology in producing something are very far or distant from you. You would probably want to make sure that the places that you're working within are relatively closer to each other. They are not dispersed to an extent that you cannot reach to them. Firms should locate manufacturing activities in those locations where economic, political, and cultural conditions, including relative factor costs, are most conducive to the performance of that activity. So we see that the economic activities, how well the economy is of that country that you're establishing yourself in, you wouldn't want to go in an economy that has higher inflation rates, because that is not going to do your business good. You're going to exchange the income that you're going to realize at the end of the day is not going to be used for better purposes, because the value of the money that you're going to generate is not going to be meaningful on an international level. And then the political regime. Some policies which the governments employ do not favor the running of some businesses. Like we saw what happened with the Coca-Cola business in India. The current political the current government made it very hard for the Coca-Cola company to continue running in India, because it employed policies which were not favorable at the end of the day. And cultural conditions. So what the culture that you believe in your home setup is not the same culture that they believe in your neighbor's setup. So every place you go to, there are different cultures. The way you're going to save food in your home is not the same way that they'll save food also in Zimbabwe. For example, when we look at the African setup, it is not right for a child to call an adult by their name. But when you go to Western societies, it is something of their culture. They can do it. You see, there are some foods that Muslims might consider to be unclean and Christians might consider to be clean. And those are your target markets. Those are the people that you're dealing with. You can either be dealing in a Muslim state, you can either be dealing in a Christian state, you know. There are different activities. You can be supplying your product to, let's say, Seventh-day Adventist, or SDAs as we know them. You can be supplying a product to them, and with full knowledge, you might also need to know that there are some things they do not take. For example, when you look at pork, SDAs consider it to be unclean, and you as a business, if you blindly manufacture that product and start supplying that product to such a grouping, it is going to make losses, or it will have zero sales at the end of the day because you did not have the full information before trading into that product. Country factors that can affect location decisions include the availability of skilled labor in supporting industries. So like when you go international, are you going to meet the required skill in that country that you've gone to? If yes, the required skill is there, then well and good, you can go ahead in dealing with that product. Supporting industries. These are industries, you know, like you as a firm on your own, if you are producing something and you do not produce something from raw materials until the final end, or either way, you can be producing raw materials until the final end, but there can also be a supporting industry like the transport. You see, those are the things that you need to look at. Those are supporting industries, the industries which are going to be there to ensure that your business continues running in a smooth way. Then formal and informal trade barriers. We looked at that there are different types of trade agreements which people might find themselves in. So there are some formal trade barriers, which can be tariffs, quotas, import quotas, several of them. And there are informal trade barriers, and there are some informal trade barriers. Another trade barrier, another trade term that is there is free trade. This is when people can trade freely, and that is a very good advantage to most firm owners because they do not get themselves into tax payments and other external costs. Expectations about future exchange rates. You know, when you're doing business, you need to have an idea on how a given currency is going to perform against another currency. When we look at the way Kwacha is performing today in relation to the dollar, you can see that the exchange rate is not favorable for the Zambian currency. And as a firm, you should be able to have information on what the future holds for a given currency. You need to make sure you employ people who are going to be able to make sure that they have a forecast. They see the relationships which are going to affect the performance of a given currency in the future. Transportation costs. When you set up yourself as a firm, how far are you going to be from your target market? If you are very far from your target market, you see that you're going to experience a lot of costs because you need to transfer the products from one location to a location where your target market is, and which can be very costly at the end of the day. And for you to minimize that, you need to make sure that the setup of your industry or your firm or where you'll be running your business from is closer to your target market. Regulations affecting FDI. So like when you invest in another country, what are the policies which are there to govern your investment? What are the terms that you've been given? If the terms are favorable, you go ahead into investing into that foreign country. If they are not, you do the opposite, which is not investing in that country, because that would be a wise choice. Because when you're doing business, you need to be rational. You need to weigh alternatives. Which choice is better between A and B? You make sure that you choose the right choice at the end of the day, not a choice that is going to give you less returns. The type of technology a firm uses in its manufacturing can affect location decisions. Three characteristics of manufacturing technology are of interest: the level of fixed costs, the machinery, the buildings that you're going to be using, the minimum efficient scale. Are you having a higher efficient scale? When you're having a high efficient scale, meaning you're not working well with your raw materials. You're using a lot to produce more. You need to use fewer to produce more. The flexibility of the technology. How can the technology be flexible in terms of creating products? Is it able to produce a given number of products if people have shifted their interest uh, from a given product to another? Are you able to also shift from that product you are producing at first to another product? The level of fixed cost. If the fixed cost of setting up a manufacturing plant are high, it might make sense to save the world market from a single location or from a few locations. So if the level of fixed of setting up a manufacturing plant are high, so you see fixed costs, these are costs that are realized from the fixed costs that from the fixed materials that we have. So the fixed materials examples are buildings, you know, machinery, vehicles. Those are fixed costs which the business owns. You know, in setting up those things, if it is very costly to set them up, you would prefer to set your firm in one location unlike multiple locations, because setting up every fixed material will make you experience higher costs. Then when the fixed costs are relatively low, multiple production plants may be possible. So when your fixed costs are low, you'll be able to set up a lot of plants because it is not very costly for you to set up those plants. You can set up as many as you want on just using fewer resources. Producing in multiple locations allows firms to respond to the local markets and reduce dependency on single location. So this is an advantage of setting yourself up in multiple places. You're going to reduce on the distance. You also reduce, you reduce on the distance, and you also be ready for the growing demand that can be realized in other places, because you always be there. You're ready to be there, unlike being in one single location. Slide number 12. The minimum efficient scale. The larger the minimum efficient scale, the level of output at which most plant level scale economies are exhausted. So the larger the minimum efficient scale of a plant, the more likely centralized production in a single location or a limited number of locations is. So like I said, efficiency is using fewer resources or having a lower cost in producing a maximum output. That is efficiency. So now if I tell your efficiency scale is showing a larger amount, that is not a good signal. And if I tell you establish yourself in multiple places with a larger efficient scale, that will do you no good, because the higher cost of one firm will be multiplied to the higher cost of another firm in another location. So having a higher figure on the minimum efficient scale is not a good signal for you to set up yourself in multiple locations. A low minimum efficient scale allows the firm to respond to local market demands and hedge against currency risk by operating in multiple locations. Now we see a situation where you have a low minimum efficient scale value. That is going to make it possible for you to set up yourself in multiple locations, because you are able to cover up the cost that can be realized compared to a larger figure that is shown on the minimum efficient scale. So like I said, the efficiency is when you're using a low cost way in producing maximum output. The flexibility of the technology. Flexible manufacturing technology on lean production covers a range of manufacturing technologies that are designed to reduce the setup time for complex equipment, increase the utilization of individual machines through better scheduling, improve quality control at all stages of the manufacturing process. So we see that flexibility simply means that you are able to shift when people change from one product to another, your machines should be able to accommodate for that change. Firms using flexible manufacturing technologies can produce a wide variety of end products at unit costs that are at a unit cost that at one time could only be achieved through the mass production of a standardized output. So mass customization implies that a firm may be able to customize its product range to meet the demands of local markets, yet still control costs. So this point simply means that now if your technology is flexible, you'll be able to adjust the qualities which your customers want to see, you'll be able to adjust without having any stress or employing other external machineries or technologies in order to do that. Then flexible machine sales allows firms to increase efficiency by improving capacity utilization and reducing work in progress. Concentrating production at a few choice locations makes sense when fixed costs are substantial, the minimum efficient scale of production is high, flexible manufacturing technologies are available. So these are now the reasons or maybe the factors that will influence you to decide on having few locations of your firm. This is because the fixed costs are substantial, meaning that the fixed costs are high, hence you don't need to establish yourself in multiple locations, but fewer locations will be an advantage. And then the minimum efficient scale, so like I said, if the minimum efficient scale is high, meaning that you're not doing well, you're not using fewer resources to produce a given end product, and you setting yourself on multiple locations is not going to do you any good, because that cost that you're experiencing, which is high in one location, will be multiplied with locations elsewhere. Flexible manufacturing technologies are available. So you decide to set up yourself in fewer locations if at all your technology is flexible. People do not have to go elsewhere to source a product that they may need. Your technology is flexible and it is ready to change to a desired product that people need. Production in multiple locations makes sense when both cost and minimum efficient scale of production are relatively low. Appropriate flexible manufacturing technologies are not available. Sorry, you pardon me, I'll be a bit fast because I still have more slides to cover and it has to be finished in 1 hour. So by 09:15 or before 09:15, I need to be done. Two product factors impact location decisions. The product value to weight ratio. If the value to weight ratio is high, it is practical to produce a product in a single location and export it to other parts of the world. So yeah, if the product's value to weight value, like if you're transporting or shipping a product from Europe to Africa, you know that there's a value that is attached to the weight of that product. And if the value is high, those people, if you decide to have a firm in Europe, you would decide to have your firm in a single location, because that is going to better your business at the end of the day, because you'll be able to retain higher revenues from the value to weight ratio. And then uh, conversely, if the value to weight ratio is low, there is greater pressure to manufacture the product in multiple locations across the world. So if the value to weight ratio is low, you decide to have your firm established in multiple places in order to increase the revenue that you're going to get from the weight value of a given product. Whether the product serve universal needs. When products serve universal needs, the need for local responsiveness falls, increasing the attractiveness of concentrating manufacturing in a central location. So it depends. If you're producing something and the, the, the desire of your product that you're producing is high on a universal dimension, you realize to say that for you to serve your customers best, you need to establish yourself in multiple locations. And this is going to lower your costs of transportation, because you'll be able to save people in a short period of time, and you're not going to lose your customers at the end of the day. Locating production facilities. There are two basic strategies for locating manufacturing facilities: concentrating them in the optimal location and serving the world market from there. So like each and every decision that you make has advantages and disadvantages. Setting yourself in one location is can be an advantage if you're producing a product that you alone can produce. But if that product that you're producing is also produced by a number of firms, you need to set yourself closer to your target customers, because if you concentrate yourself in a distant location, you'll find that you'll be losing out, because those customers can be served by other people as well. Then decentralizing them in various regional or national locations that are close to major markets. So this is an advantage. If you establish yourself in multiple locations, you'll be able to save customers quicker and better. And you're going to ensure that your target customers are kept. So this is a summary of the factors that affect location decisions and production, and also a summary on the technologies that a firm is employing in relation to whether you're going to establish yourself on a multiple scale or a concentrated scale. The strategic role of foreign factories. The strategic role of foreign factories and the strategic advantage of a particular location can change over time. Factories initially established to take advantage of low-cost labor can evolve into facilities with advanced design capabilities. So like when you're starting a business elsewhere, probably the idea or the driving force behind that decision that you've made to establish yourself elsewhere is because of low labor costs. When you look at the Chinese government, most Chinese business them have established themselves in Africa where they find cheap labor. And we see that this decision now, at the end of the day, changes because the facilities are able to evolve, and they are, at the end of the day, these people grow on a larger scale. As governmental regulations change and countries upgrade their factors of production, the strategic advantage of a particular location can change. So if the government policies change also, if they were very stiff in terms of taxes, in establishing, in registering your business, establishing yourself elsewhere, it was very stiff, and then those policies get to be relaxed. You and I agree to say that you'll be able now to establish yourself in multiple locations for you to establish yourself? The strategic foreign factories. As the strategic role of a factory is upgraded and FM develops centers of excellence in different locations worldwide, it supports the development of transactional strategies. A focus of transactional strategy is global learning, the idea that valuable knowledge does not reside just in domestic operation, it may also be found in its foreign subsidiaries. So like if you establish yourself also on an international level, you find that you're going to gain new knowledge. The interaction that you're going to have with the personnel in that foreign country that you established yourself in their factories, and from those factories you also be able to learn on how production is done. And at the end of the day, you are going to improve on the production quality of your own firm. So managers should promote the idea that factories are potential centers of excellence with strategic importance to the firm. So this is a point to agree that yes, we can learn, we can get knowledge from foreign entities. We can get knowledge from foreign factories. Outsourcing production, make or buy decisions. So these are some decisions which you have at your disposal as a firm. Are you going to make or buy? Should an international business make or buy the component parts to go into their final product? Like I said, you as a business, you might be producing from raw materials to final product, or there are some components which you need to buy. So now these are some decisions you need to ask yourself. Are you going to make sure that you make those components, or maybe you just buy those components? So today service firms also face make or buy decisions as they choose which activities to outsource and which to keep in-house. Make or buy decisions involving international markets are more complex than those involving domestic markets. The advantage of make, so like you are making yourself now, which is vertical integration, making component parts inside your own firm. The advantages of making the things that you need to use until you have your final product. This lowers cost. Manufacture a part in-house if the firm is more efficient at the production activity. So like you see, efficiency again comes in. If you're producing something in a very good way, you use low cost in producing that product, you can decide to start making the things on your own. Facilitating specialized investments. If in-house production makes sense when substantial investments in specialized assets, assets whose value is contingent upon a particular